Hey, what's up, Silver Stackers? Thank you for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer, so let's go over an interview with Kitco News and David Morgan. Now, David Morgan is my idol. He's nicknamed the Silver Guru for a reason. Well, me and him have the same ideologies. The video is titled Worldwide Silver Shortage question mark. A supply crunch may be inevitable. And then down here it shows silver supplies will be depleted and industrial demand will suck up all the silver that's available over the next 10 years, causing prices to rise and making it the best investment in decades, according to David Morgan, founder and author of the Morgan Report. And you can see, if you read any of that and watch my videos, that's exactly what I represent as well. The silver supply is depleting, and mainly because the massive amount of industrial demand that's going to be coming over the next 10 years as we advance in this new digital technological era. There is not enough silver. And when I talk about the silver shortage, I've seen so many articles and even some channels that really don't think there's a shortage whatsoever. And when they talk about that, they're just theorizing. But on my channel, I go over the numbers. I look at the data. I look at the actual situations and put the pieces of the puzzle together just like David does. And it's funny because I'm now partnered with Miles Franklin, which Andy Schekman's the CEO. Andy Schekman and David Morgan are very good friends. They go ways back. And actually, David Morgan is partnered with Miles Franklin as well. So I'm technically on the same team as my idol. Andy Schekman found out that I idolized David Morgan, and he was like, I'll try to book you an interview with him. And then 3 days later, he said, yeah, I booked you that interview with David. So the guy on the left side of that screen is gonna be me soon, which is pretty crazy. And I think me and him would have the best interview because we both speak the same exact language, and I would love to pick his brain on some of the other ideas I have thrown out there. I think it is going to be a huge interview, and I hope you guys stick around. Since I am partnered with Miles Franklin now, if you guys want to buy from them, the most trusted bullion dealer, most respected. I'm not even kidding when I say they are the most respected. Andy Schekman, he's one of the big dogs, and I do think if you buy from someone, especially trying to find a consistent supplier, it would be very good to build a relationship with someone that understands the market, that's been in here, one of the top dogs, and get to know them. It's a direct source instead of just buying from AppMex or somewhere where you don't know who's behind that screen. And Andy will work with you. He really will. There's a guy that emailed me earlier today. He's talking about buying X amount of silver. He's trying to look around. And I was like, yo, you're new. I know you have a lot of questions. You're a little skeptical. I was like, let me try to reach out to Andy and see if you guys can talk and figure out. And Andy was like, sure. And now him and Andy are talking, trying to figure out what's best for that guy. Andy is the nicest guy. He's always going to look out for people. And it's amazing. So if you want to buy from Miles Franklin, email info@milesfranklin.com. Tell them Silver Slayer sent you. He even put together a Slayer discount special. You can get Krugerrands or Britannias at only $4.50 over spot. So yeah, a lot of stuff big is happening, and I'm excited. So let's jump into this interview. You can see there's different chapters. So the first chapter, commodities price slowdown, then the silver supply crunch, and you can see right here, silver demand surges, no more silver question mark, substitutes for silver, which is none. Copper would be a close second, but the quality wouldn't be as good, so I already know that's what they're going to talk about. There, nothing can substitute silver. It's the most highly conductive metal for thermal conductivity, electricity, even light sensitivity. The only option they have is cutting down the amount of silver. Like there's 58 grams of silver in an electric vehicle. I know they're trying to cut it down to like 26 grams or something, but nothing can substitute silver. We're talking about elements on the periodic table. And then we go government mining for silver, short-term silver forecast, gold to silver ratio. You can see that every single topic they talk about in this interview are the same exact topics I make videos about on a daily basis. Me and David Morgan aren't just reading the same book, not just on the same chapter. We're on the same page as well. So let's jump into this interview. The link to this interview will be in the description if you want to check it out yourself. So yeah, let's talk some silver.
We have on the show today an expert on silver. David Morgan is the editor of the Morgan Report, and he is here to talk about the macro outlook for not just silver, but other key commodities that you need to be following right now. David, welcome back to the show. Always a pleasure to have you here on Kitco.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about a broad overview of all commodities, not just silver. So, as you know, inflation has hit a multi-year high, or multi-decade high rather, of 9.1%. But then the last report that came out not too long ago was 8.5. So a slight fall in headline CPI right there. Now, the commodities prices have been falling in tandem with that report. In fact, some analysts have speculated that the reason we had a lower CPI in the last CPI report was because commodities have been falling. Most commodities, most hard assets have peaked around May, and like lumber, copper, a lot of other base metals, they've been falling ever since then. Food prices have also been falling. Is this a trend that you think will likely continue, David, as we head into a global slowdown? Do you think commodity prices will continue to soften?
I do, and that's great insights, and thanks. I'll just going to add on to that a bit. First of all, the trend will continue. Secondly, we are seeing a contraction globally, which means we're going to see less need for copper, lead, zinc, the base metals. Every base metal is off this year except I think tin and one other, I think nickel. And all the rest of the base metals across the board are off somewhere around 30% in some cases. I just did that on my weekly blog. The metals are a unique set because they represent money or financial stability. So you could have gold and silver, perhaps platinum, palladium, making moves higher while the copper, lead, zinc, base metal complex falls off. And that's what I expect going forward. On the other parts of the commodity sector, oil's been weak relatively from what it's been. However, the agricultural commodities are in dire straits. We've had all kinds of problems throughout the globe with locusts, weather problems, too wet to plant, too dry to plant, all kinds of reasons that the foodstuffs globally are hurting. And that's not going away. That trend will remain for probably the next couple of years. There's also, if you want to get into it, the climate change / Maunder minimum, what goes on in these solar cycles. I don't want to go too deep. The point is that stuff we need, food and energy, is probably going to continue higher. And then on the silver side, I'll have to interject there. I get often asked, what about silver and what's happening with a slowing economy and an increase in cost, because oil is directly related to mining. In some cases, 25% of the costs are due to like diesel. Well, that could be higher, but it's going to curtail the base metals, like I just said. So since 70% of silver is a result of base metal mining, if that is down and down noticeably, that takes a great deal of silver supply off of the market. And that's what I actually expect. Is it going to be like huge? I don't know. I don't think it's going to be huge. I think it's going to be measurable. And I think we're going to have, even though we might have better production from primary silver mines, the overall will be less because we're dropping, contracting, and seeing lower living standards going forward, probably for the next few years.
Sorry, just to clarify, you're saying that rising energy costs are going to restrict silver production and limit, am I understanding that right?
Yeah, there's a limit to everything. And if the costs are too high, the input costs for mining in general, it could cut back. In other words, for example, take like a Pan American that has several mines around the world. There's some mines that are very marginal, and they'll just shut them down and put them on maintenance and quit mining out of them because the cost level for that particular mine is not economically effective.
That's a very interesting perspective. Everyone's talking about silver rising from an ESG perspective. You got the greenification of the economy needing silver for a lot of industrial applications, which we'll talk about now or later on in the interview. But you're saying that more immediately a supply shortage is going to push up silver prices. Is it going to have a significant impact, actually, David, on the price of silver, or not at all? What you just talked about.
Yeah, well, it could. I mean, I'm forecasting what's going on in the global economy. I think I'm pretty
Yes.
accurate at it. There's a lag. I mean, but markets usually forecast the future. So if I'm correct, and I believe I am, you could see a push in silver prices because of lack of base metal mining and higher costs. So some mines will become inefficient and not economically viable. And so that will cut the supply on the primary silver miners and on the base metal miners, which means kind of a double whammy. I don't want to build too strong a case here, but it is in the cards. In fact, I did in the Morgan report a few months back. I got a question from one of our members. What's going to happen? And that was when oil was spiking.
Okay, I just want to interject because this is a long interview. If you want to watch the entire interview, the link is in the description. But I love everything he's saying, and I do like how he even branched off saying, silver is different than other metals, where other, commodities, other different types of resources might fall off. Silver will take on a life of its own because of its industrial applications, which they're actually going to go into. And I also like how he talks about it's detached from the dollar. And a lot of people compare commodities to what's happening to the dollar, like gold, lead, zinc, the metals that they're trying to dig out of the ground. By the way, silver's a byproduct. They're looking for gold, lead, and zinc. If they find some silver, they'll take it. But most people, when they try to predict the price of silver, look at it from a monetary point of view and don't look at it from the fundamentals, which is the supply and demand, which that's where I kind of take over. Yeah, we could look at CPI, we could look at all that stuff, but there's a whole other world of why I talk about silver having so much potential. And that's why it's such a perfect investment. It's a monetary metal and an industrial metal, the best of both worlds. Gold's just a monetary metal, so it only has opportunity where the dollar is weakening. Silver, though, is needed critically over the next 10 years and beyond. If you want to look at real silver, opportunity, look at 20, 30 years from now. I mean, we're just now starting the Green New Deal, right? Imagine by then what silver's price could be, and it will detach from gold. Regardless, though, there are some other very interesting questions going into the demand surge. No more silver. I want to cover this no more silver segment they talk about. Maybe, I mean, I'm sure the substitutes for silver, we already know what that question is, or what that answer is. And yeah, so I mainly want to focus on this no more silver. So let's jump into that.
Oh, speaking of silver shortage, I recall the Matt Watson interview that I did. You're right; he is very knowledgeable, and I believe that he said that in about 20 years or so, we will run out of silver if we assume that there will not be enough silver in above ground reserves. I think is what he said, to service the amount of silver that should, in theory, be needed to produce everything that we need to produce: solar panels, electric vehicles, and so on. I mean, that's not, we're not talking about, of course, mints and coins. We're talking about industrial usage of silver, not enough silver being in reserves around the world to service our demand. Is that a concern that you have, David?
Absolutely. And it was actually first stated by the USGS, United States Geological Survey. They basically said that silver would be the first element to leave on the periodic table that will be in such short supply. And that was a few years back. And based on Matt's work and my own, others, I take a lot of input. Just the industrial side alone is probably going to take, as you outlined, all the silver available at some point in time, and that's off in the future. I would say this, as far as a long-term investment or a legacy investment, if you're in your 20s or 30s and you've got, a new family and you want to put your son or daughter through college, I would commit some to the silver market, because I think if you got a long time horizon, like 10 years or more, I can't think of something that's more that it would be better than a silver investment. You don't have to go whole.
I think he was talking about me right there because I'm 30 and I have a 2-year-old daughter. Just throwing that out. No, I'm kidding. He's not talking about me, but that is a good example. Someone like me, I just turned 30 years old. I have 20, 30, 40. I'm not planning on selling for 20, 30 years. and you got to remember that, and that's why everyone should have different investing strategies. Some people have more or less silver than the other person in the YouTube comment you're saying is doing it wrong. There's no wrong way. Everyone has different financial situations. Everyone is going to be exiting the market at different times. Everyone has different reasons they're stacking, different resources. I mean, there's so many different variables that what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. But I do like that he mentioned that, and I also do like that he acknowledged, even the U.S. Geological Survey admitted, silver is going to be the first element that is gone. And a lot of people, when they think of a silver shortage, they imagine, David Lynn even just said, the investment sector. There's a whole other side. It's the industrial sector. It's not just going to be like, oh, you can't go buy any Eagles on APMEX. It's not that. It's a much bigger picture. Put it a little bit, a little bit of context in there. The U.S. mint, they mint what, 13, 14 million Eagles per year, but the global demand exceeded 1.112 billion ounces. Investment sector is a tiny, tiny, tiny portion. We're talking about something much bigger. And if it's going to take 10 years or 20 years, a lot of people are thinking, I'm talking about tomorrow. No, the Green New Deal just started. It's the next 10, 15, 20 years where we're really going to see. When I talk about triple digit silver, I was saying the year 2025, 2026, that's when we'll be deep enough into the Green New Deal. That's when the big tech companies, the industrial sector will realize, hey, we don't have enough silver. This is a major problem. They can't sweep it under the rug. I think by then, but when I was interviewing Andy Schechtman, I brought that same point up the same year, 2025, 2026. He said he thinks it's going to be a lot sooner because, like I mentioned earlier, the best of both worlds, it's not just the industrial sector, but he's also incorporating the US dollar, right? The world's reserve currency, these other countries, and all the petrodollar. So it's crazy that all the stars are aligning. And whether it's a silver shortage, whether it's the money aspect of it, everything makes sense. Silver does make the most sense if you want to look at things technically.
But certainly the legacy type of investment going from generation to generation, I think silver will shine at some point, probably beyond what anyone thinks. But it's probably going to take what I call a natural corner. How do you corner the silver market? Well, you buy up all the silver that's available. And of course, that's been tried by the Hunt brothers and it's been tried in the past. But that isn't necessary. A natural corner is when the industry alone sucks up all the silver that's available and there isn't any left. And that's an extreme. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, but that's a general trend. And I think we need to pay attention to it, especially if you are a silver investor holding silver in, let's say, long-term storage because you expect the price to increase over time.
Hypothetically, David, let's suppose we run out of silver. Just extreme example. Is there a substitute for silver that could replace this metal with the exact same industrial application?
I love the way you think, and that's an excellent question. Yes and no. The real answer is no. Nothing conducts light as well as silver. Nothing conducts electricity as well as silver. Nothing conducts heat as well as silver. However, the graphene space is pretty close on electrical conductivity. However, it's uneconomic compared to what silver costs. So in other words, when you're doing, nanotubules to build, exotic electronics, it's just as costlier than silver would be. But yes, there's that possibility. But overall, no. And it's really, I'll elaborate somewhat, it's price inelastic on the demand side. And the reason is most silver applications are absolutely essential and irreplaceable. There is no substitute. But it's such a small amount that it doesn't matter what the price of silver is. So for an example, right, if you're looking at a cell phone that has gold and silver in it, the silver might only be worth 50 cents. And so if silver went up tenfold, it would be $5. But $5 for a $1,000 cell phone is almost meaningless. So, the manufacturer might pass it on, but really there's nothing to pass on because such little is used in refrigerators, washing machines, most of your electronic, your membrane switches, your flat screen TVs, everything that silver is using is in such a small amount relative to the output cost of the overall thing.
And that's also going off of him. That's also why recycling is so hard. You know, there's a reason why gold is remelted, recycled, rescrapped, because gold is 90 times more valuable. So people are going to take gold out of cell phones because you might get a couple dollars. Go take silver out of cell phones. Go pawn a necklace out of your, sell your grandma's jewelry. You're not gonna pawn that necklace for $2.50, but you might pawn the gold chain that's worth $200-300. Since silver is so much cheaper, there's not as much motivation to recycle it because it's so cheap. So you could use that in both ways, as there's so few, like David was saying, 58 grams of silver in an electric vehicle. Think of that. A whole EV, 58 grams. That really puts things into context. But then imagine scrapping the silver out of that 58 grams and getting a couple dollars. You see what I'm saying? It's a big difference. And when you compare gold versus silver, that ounce of gold that gets dug up out of the ground, it's going to stay in circulation for a century. Get turned into, and especially since gold is basically mainly a monetary metal, it's only used for coins and jewelry and bars. So all those coins, jewelry, and bars gets remelted, made into more coins, jewelry, and bars. But the ounce of silver that gets dug up out of the ground will be thrown away in landfills within a couple decades because nobody's scrapping the silver out of the solar panels and the EVs and 5G towers. See what I'm saying? So silver, it runs out of the half-life's much, much smaller, which is even a bigger problem for the supply shortage. But anyways, if you want to check the whole interview, I'm gonna link it. I don't want to, take away from the entirety of it. I want you guys to go do your own research. Plus, it's not fair to Kitco if I show the whole thing because then that's kind of taking away from their viewership. So yeah, I hope you guys liked the interview. I hope you guys now understand why I'm so excited to be able to have the opportunity to interview such a legend like David Morgan, and pretty cool that I'm on the same team as him as well. So, like I said, if you want to purchase from Miles Franklin, email info@milesfranklin.com. Ask what they have in stock, their inventory, whatever. Ask for the Silver Slayer special discount if you want to get Britannias and Krugerrands at $4.50 over spot. Make sure you let them know Silver Slayer sent you. He will be happy to hear it. I can promise you that. Plus, it supports me as well. For free, just supporting me, and I'd appreciate everyone that does that. I do think it's pretty important to be finding a direct supplier, a direct supplier that can fill a $50 million order. That lady billionaire from Texas, she trusted him with $50 million. I can guarantee she's not going to trust too many people with $50 million. And that just proves how respected they are and loyal. And he filled that order in 2 days, by the way. 900,000 eagles, over 100,000 ounces in junk silver and gold. He filled that entire order in 2 days. I highly doubt anyone else on this planet could pull that off. And if you watch the interview that I did with Andy, he actually talks about how he pulled that off. So anyways, yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Hope you liked the video. I post daily. If you want to check out the rest of this interview, links in the description. Please subscribe and go check out Miles Franklin. Their website will be up in a few weeks, so you'll be able to purchase that way. But right now, just email them and you'll get hooked up. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.